All right, I'm gonna try to do one of these every day. That's the goal. And one of these every day while the Crunchy Case project is running. Promote the project, get more money for the air pollution research. More money for the air pollution research means better results. Usually, better results mean more impact with lowering submicron mode particulates in the air. But, I mean, I know that most people aren't really interested in air pollution that much, except like an air pollution researcher like me. So I don't have to just answer questions about air pollution. I can answer all the questions that you guys have. There's a lot of stuff I don't know anything about, but this kind of stuff that a lot of people don't know anything about, I actually know a good bit, which is why I'm making a YouTube video on a Tuesday afternoon instead of doing something else. My sled's broken. I accidentally blew up the engine. All right. Here are the questions. Number one, does a Nintendo Switch fit inside the smaller case? Well, I actually had a Nintendo Switch to test if it went inside. I didn't test it, but I went online and checked the dimensions of the Nintendo Switch, and it will fit inside the small one. I did actually test the Xbox One inside the large case, and it fit in there with the controller, the actual gaming system, the cords, all that. It all fit fine inside the large called the records box. Now, I would recommend using some if you're going to move fragile stuff like say glassware or electronic stuff, it wouldn't hurt to put a little bit of silver bubble in there with it just to protect it a little more. It's not critical, but it definitely can help. I had another question about why are we talking about these as mailers? Well, these are developed as mailers so that when you no longer need it as the Crunchy Case function, or if you want to use it to send one to a friend, you open it up like this. Okay. You can put your book inside. Any kind of media, VHS tapes, CDs. For the bigger ones, you can put records. The medium-sized ones, you can fit sheet music. Any media that you need to run. And here's what you do. So you pull this through on both sides. Okay? But you have this. And if you look, the cord is now on the inside. You use this rope inside to secure your book or your VHS tape, whatever. You can tie it up. This prevents it from, and you can also use this to protect something in storage. If it falls, this protects it from hitting against the edge too sharp, as long as you tie it up with the rope inside. And then when you're done, you close it. You probably should put a little, either just wrap the whole thing in paper or just cover it in like saran wrap or tape or something, just so that you don't have to worry about it coming out. But the post office can open it up real easily, which they can check for medium mail, which is useful because they want to make sure people aren't mailing bricks through there. It's made for books, VHS tapes, LP records, sheet music, bound and printed matter, things like that. It's not made for advertising. It's not made for newspapers. It's not made for magazines. It's made for books. I think periodicals may be allowed. You have to check the USPS with that. But it's really just perfect for VHS tapes and books and CDs and things like that. So you can reuse this indefinitely. This is really, really strong. I'm not a weak person, but at the end here, you're not going to collapse this. It's not like plastic. The ribs are running at alternate sides. I'm sorry, it's not like paperboard. And this is reusable for 15, 20 years. I mean, this bungee may eventually break on it, but replacing it is trivial. If your bungee ever breaks, just let us know and we'll replace it for you. So that leads to another question, which was not asked to me online, but was just asked to me by somebody in person. What's the warranty on these? I'd probably say 10 years, warranty for 10 years. But if you ever have a problem after 10 years, just contact me. It's probably fine. We'll replace it. All right. So about the physics research that this crunchy case is going to support. Well, let me just show you another size here. This is the medium size one. This is the large size one. So if we do a comparison of all of them next to each other, there's large, there's the medium. So you can see the medium, large is a little wider, a good bit taller. And then here's the small. Okay, I don't know if this isn't the most instructive. Somebody did ask for me to put, I think it was, I'm trying to remember his name now. I'm forgetting it. Asked me to put up a graphic of the sizes, which I'll do. I'll stick that on the Kickstarter site so that way you can see the sizes of the different boxes. But those are the three main sizes. They do, this is kind of cool. If you get 3 boxes, look at this neat little trick. So open it up. You can put the small box inside the medium box. Hey, buddy. I'm just showing the people how this box works. Yeah, you playing video games? You remember when I put an Xbox inside a crunchy case? Yeah, he remembers. And look, then you can take the medium box and stick it in the large like that. So if you buy a set of 3, you can get them all in the same color or different colors. Look, it all fits in one box. Throw it in the back of your closet. You got a great little set for when you need it. Hey, what'd you get out of the kitchen? Goes in there and takes snack cakes. These kids out of school with the quarantine on. Okay, so all of that does go to support physics research. Hey, let's finish this up. We don't want to take these to take too long. We'll try to keep it under 10 minutes unless we get a ton of questions. Look, people do ask, they ask more detail about the research, and it's really kind of, it's always a challenge to keep it simple enough that it's easy to understand or it's easy for me to explain to people. But, back scratcher, when you have so few cars on the road, well, here, I'll just a little background. After 9/11, they grounded airplanes for about 3 weeks. No, sorry, 3 days, excuse me. In that short time, they were able to see what was the effect of the contrails that spread over the sky, because all of a sudden for those 3 days, there were very few contrails, practically no air traffic. And by having that brief little window of time when they saw there were no contrails versus all the other times that there were contrails, they were able to come to some conclusions. During this quarantine, the roads are empty, not empty, but there very, very little traffic on it. And that shows in the air pollution readings. Now, for particulate air pollution, there's essentially 2 different kinds. There's there's particles that are very small, that tend to condense out of the air, out of chemical particles that build up like a snowball. And then there are the large particles that tend to break off of the stuff that's burning, or maybe even grow so large that they are able to grow large enough to grow out of the accumulation mode, which doesn't happen that often depending on the particles. But regardless, you have like a camel's hump distribution. So you have small particles, a whole bunch of small particles here and a whole bunch of large particles here, not really too many medium particles in the middle. So the small particles settle out very, very slowly, on the order of weeks and months, because they're relatively small, and it's like dropping a coffee filter versus dropping a wadded up coffee filter. The wadded up coffee filter will fall very quickly. The coffee filter has a relatively low mass density and a relatively large area, so as it falls through the air, it experiences a lot of nonlinear, non-Newtonian effects with a lot of drag that slow it down. And that's very similar to small particles. As they're in the air, they're impacted by gravity just as much as just relative to their mass, just as much as the large particles are. But their mass density, even if the mass density is the same, the surface area per unit mass is much, 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 much higher. Okay, it's like, for a comparison of how you can take the exact same material and how different it can become when it's small. Imagine taking, say, a small section of 2x4 and burning it. It'll eventually catch fire. It's going to take a while. But if you take that same section of 2x4 and shave it down into sawdust, and you have a pile of sawdust and set fire to that, it goes off in a second, because even though there's the same amount of mass in both piles of wood, the surface area of that log is much, much smaller than the total surface area of that pile of sawdust. Because in the case of the sawdust, you pick up each little piece, you measure it all the way, and then multiply it by all the pieces of sawdust you have. You have much, much greater total area of the sawdust. And that's part of the reason why the small particles behave differently than the large particles do. It has to do with the amount of mass relative to their surface area, and also the surface energy, which has to do with how they aggregate. So looking at how the air is changing during the quarantine and then after the quarantine is over will give us an amazing insight into how long do these small particles stay up when there's other pollutants in the air? How long do they stay up when there's few other pollutants in the air? How long does it take to make new submicron mode particulates? How long do they start to accumulate again? How far do they travel? This stuff is a really incredible opportunity during the quarantine, because we have specific dates. Unlike, I'd say, a general economic downturn, this was politically created. This was said politicians, and not politicians, but governors and presidents of countries and government officials in countries like China and South Korea and America and Canada. They instituted certain policies as far as people driving and people leaving their houses and transport of goods that have a direct and measurable effect on the air pollutants. So we can look at the results we see, the results we measure, and we say, look at this time. There's such and such ratio of small particles to large particles. And we can work backwards and tie that most likely, and perhaps, depending on how complicated it is, to specific events that dramatically cut particulates in certain areas of the world. This is a really rare opportunity to be able to learn about air pollution to this degree, because natural occurrences where you have such a sharp demarcation between on and off, between a lot of traffic and almost no traffic, are incredibly rare. And that sharp demarcation allows us to look at this natural situation, when I say natural situation, the way Mother Nature removes these particulates from the air, the way they settle out of the air, the way they stick onto raindrops, the way they stick onto other air pollution particles, the way they stick to the ground, the way they stay in the air, the way they settle out of the stratosphere different than they settle out of the troposphere, the way their movement around the globe is impacted by their size. And after this research is over, I believe, based on initial results, that we will have some data and some results and some recommendations to feed back to industry that they can use to clean their processes, make cleaner air coming out of their factories, coming out of the cars that they make, coming out of the machines that they make, coming out of the natural gas, I'll say the natural gas precursor, which I guess is economically a way to call it, things that run on wood, coal, gasoline, things that you have to burn. Natural gas is another story. It's a very clean burn. It's mostly carbon that it puts out. But these other precursors to that, these other pre-energy sources before natural gas, are still widely used, and they strongly impact the air. And it would be terrific if we could figure out how we can improve the air in an affordable way, so that industry doesn't have to suffer, that they can look at this and say, here's something cheaper we can do that can actually make the air cleaner. And when the air is cleaner, the results are measurable. Depending on how you measure, between 3 and 6 million people die every year from air pollution still, even with the air supposedly cleaner. Many researchers think this is largely due or at least increasing deaths, the ones that are coming up, while other pollutants like sulfur dioxides and nitrogen oxides nitrogen oxides are coming up, but lead and certain volatile organic compounds and carbon monoxide are going down. Other pollutants that are perhaps more difficult to measure and sometimes completely invisible seem to be increasing. What is the interplay between those other pollutants and the ones that are damaging us? But if you're looking at between 3 to 7 million lives a year lost due to air pollution, just in the United States alone, that's tens of thousands of children whose lives are either ended or made very, very difficult from air pollution-related diseases like asthma and chronic obstructive pulmonary disorder and emphysema, and eventually even leading to things like lung cancer. And it's even been shown to weaken immune systems so that diseases like pneumonia and bacterial infections like pneumonia can be made worse. And in some cases, cleaner air can actually increase asymptomatic reactions to infections. So there's a wonderful opportunity here to clean the air. And this little guy, where's the crunchy case? Come here, you. Come here, you. This is the guy who's going to help us, because these are made in USA. They're made in Colorado. How can anybody turn that down? These great boxes. I mean, let's be honest. They're really cool. Look at this. Stainless steel fittings, a UV stabilized rope, and ozone resistant plastic, high strength graphics. Got stainless steel little pull things there, and high strength bungee cords to hold it closed. Really innovative design, very lightweight. This entire set, remarkably light. And the individual boxes, like the small boxes, is actually lighter than the cell phones you'll put into it. So it's a good product. It's a product that I feel proud about. And it's an affordable product. It's made to the same standards that we've made backpack barge boats, the folding boats, and the same standard we've made hut sleds, folding sleds. These are outdoor products made for people who like to be outdoors and spend time outdoors and want clean air to breathe when they're outdoors. Okay, thank you very much. I'll try to bring some more questions to the next one.